tuition for children of illegal immigrants, and it didn't pass, but it didn't fail either. It got 49 votes, and it didn't get the 50 votes that needed to pass, but it had a majority of votes. It had 49 to 40. And the Democrats lined up with the more of the establishment type Republicans on that, and we were able to fight that back. But you'll see some fights along those lines between the conservatives and the establishment types, and you're seeing that on the national scale as well. You're seeing conservatives stand up, and you're seeing that with the presidential election. I guess 60% or more are kind of sick of the establishment, same old, same old.
Thank you very much. We have Representative Heather Scott joining us, and Representative Scott, we're talking about the peer-to-peer intimidation technique within political parties. Can you share some details with us about the peer-to-peer intimidation that you experienced in Idaho with the Republican Party?
Well, I couldn't quite catch your question. I apologize.
So, Representative Scott, can you go ahead and call my phone, and then I'll put you in by conference call. Is that okay? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll have Representative Scott call in, and she'll join us by phone. And when she does, we'll get her to tell us about the games that she's experienced in Idaho, which is quite profound, quite amazing the amount of pressure that they put on legislators in order to conform to the political platform of either party, whether it's Democrat or, as we've heard from Representative Klingenschmidt in Colorado, or whether it's the Republican Party in Tennessee. Let's see what Representative Scott, she's joining us now. Representative Scott, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Mark.
Heather, do you mind sharing with us some of the intimidation that you've experienced with the supermajority Republican form in Idaho as a new freshman legislator? I think you dropped off, Heather. If you don't mind, call me back. All right, so we lost Representative Scott. She's driving on away from a presentation there, just kind of like Representative Terry was. They're really busy. Let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Gordon. All right, so we're gonna wait for her to call back. In the meantime, what we'll do is just want to look through these again. It says the games that are played inside the governed. We have they meet in secret. Typically, the budget committee kills the bills. People have very little control of the budget. They try to set the legislators up on bad votes. Typically, leadership will get their bills done and passed, and they have a lot of authority. This was very interesting about what Gordon shared with us about peer-to-peer intimidation. And the internal party battles to, looks like we dropped off a few people again. There we are, we got Sharon back. So we lost Representative Scott. I think she was driving through, she lives up in northern Idaho where it's very rural, so we'll have to wait to see if she can get back on. Well, I'll tell you what, Representative Klingenschmidt and Terry, can we move to question 2? What role do you see the governors, this would be the elected and the bureaucrats, playing in losing our republic? What type of action do you see them taking behind the scenes, whether Democrat or Republican, to lose the republic? And either one can take that.
This is Gordon against Schmidt in Colorado Springs.
For me, one of the things has to...
And just had an interaction with our governor about a transportation issue. We have this highway, I-25, which goes from Colorado Springs up to Denver, and it's 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes, and there's millions of cars that see. So you get bottlenecks at various spots. Like in Monument, there's a bottleneck, and in the Denver Tech Center, there's a bottleneck. So in the Denver...
Go ahead, Gordon.
That is the one in Monument. The one in Monument is done by Colorado Springs, which is mostly a Republican town, whereas Denver is mostly a Democrat town. So you would think there would be fairness among transportation dollars, but in reality, Denver gets way more transportation dollars than Colorado does because the Democrat governor is able to control a lot of those allocations. So when he ran for election, one of Colorado Springs voters, he promised as part of his campaign, both 6 years ago and 2 years ago, when we voted him as a Democrat governor, that he would widen I-25 in Monument, and he would at least move us up to 3 lanes and get rid of that bottleneck. So he did not keep that after his first election. He did not keep that promise after his second election. And he wrote him a letter that, look, we've got these quotes of you in the newspaper when you were campaigning, promised these transportation dollars. We want you to widen I-25. It would really help Colorado Springs. And why do you plan to do this? Governor Hickenlooper wrote to us, and this is about us Republican state reps who signed the letter. He wrote back to us and said, I'll do that as soon as you release the Medicaid dollars that should be going to people in the form of a tax refund under the table part of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights in our Constitution. Basically, it's hijacking the Medicaid hospital dollars that are supposed to be refunded back to the people. And if you cave in on that, then I will keep my campaign promise and pay for your, increase the priority of widening I-25 in the transportation budget. So he's holding one hand hostage to the other, and we don't think that's right. We think, we proposed a $100 million increase last year in transportation dollars to widen the highways, or at least to repair old bridges and old state highways that have potholes, defeated by the Democrat Party. They want to spend it on their social programs. They want to spend it on Medicaid increases. When principally, that part of the budget is overfunded. It's so overfunded that the Constitution requires a refund back to the taxpayers. And instead of doing the right thing, he is holding that hostage. And so in that sense, he is not accountable to the people, and the state legislators frustrated here. There's not much we can do about that.
Thank you. Representative Terry, and then we'll jump to Representative Scott, and she can answer the first question in concert with this one as you finish. Go ahead.
Yes, for us, one of the issues that we've had in the past, and it actually happened this year, is what we call basically getting a fiscal note on your bill. And a lot of representatives would file a bill and it'd go through the system and you'd get a note on it. A lot of the concern is that these are faulty fiscal notes. One of the issues that came up this last year had to do with transparency and ability for parents and teachers to see the test PCAPs, which are end-of-year tests for students. And if our teachers are going to be evaluated based on how their students do on that test, one would think that they would be able to review those exams, or if your child is being asked certain questions, and in our case, there was a section that the students apparently had to read from the Quran and then answer questions on that, and the parents and the teachers didn't get a chance to look at that. And this last year, we tried to allow that to occur, and they placed a $17 million fiscal note on that bill, which meant it was dead in the water and it was not going to get out of the committee. And so for us, that's it's kind of demoralizing to parents and to teachers. And as far as losing the Republican, you have something like that goes on. And past year, we have changed to what's called TN Ready, and the governor signed a 3-year contract with Measurement Inc. while we were out of session. So that wasn't even something that we as legislators could have a voice in that. Another issue that we had that came through was called Insure Tennessee, and that was basically a Medicaid expansion bill. And if you read the resolution said that a verbal agreement, that the agreement could change, and then once it got in place, the governor had complete control over how to implement it. And for me, that's, if I voted yes on that one, I think I'd be violating my oath and give up the voice of the district to basically have the governor have full control over it. If I had a patient that was even on that, I couldn't advocate for them because the governor have the executive branch would have the complete authority over that. So those are some of the things that I think that have as far as the governor playing a role in losing the Republican. There were people willing to vote away their right of their constituents to vote for Insure Tennessee. Executive branch complete control, and I stood up against that. And even now, the media they're arguing: are you for Insure Tennessee or against Insure Tennessee? And the bill the actual body of work isn't what we were voting on. We were voting on that resolution, and the resolution violated our oath.
And there are a lot of cases like this where the games that are played behind the scenes. Give me a second here, Representative Terry. I lost Representative Clinton. You'll have to call back.
Hi.
Hi. So, Representative Scott, we were before we were able to jump on, we were talking about two things. One is what games are being played. I think I lost you again. Yeah, I'd lose you. So I've got to wait for Representative Klingenschmidt and Representative Scott to call back. They both are having technical problems. So Representative Terry, what would you say? How are the governed? That's us, the people on this call. How are we? How are we contributing to the loss of the republic? How would you characterize that?
Apathy, inactivity. I mean, like one of the things that's really good about CSG is as far as building relationships and building relationships with your representatives or your elected officials. And for me, as a representative, I want to build relationships relationship with my constituents. Like this afternoon, I was out passing Christmas cards out, knocking on doors, just so that if I had any issues that come up, or if they had any issues, I'd have that relationship already there. But what I do see is like some people that have an issue, they'll come into your office and they already have a preconceived notion, and they'll start, basically shaking their finger at you, or getting angry with you, and they've lost my vote, or somebody's vote right off the bat, because they haven't built that relationship. And so I think a lot of it with the governed is build that relationship first, and you have to build up an ethos with your representative, or your city councilman, or whoever, so that when an issue does come up that you really need, you'll be able to be more influential in your approach. The other thing that's good about CSG has to do with researching your articles, and researching and being able to write effectively, so that when you do present to your elected official or stand before a committee, you're not just up there throwing out beliefs and rhetoric and an emotion. One of the things that we have here, like at MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University, they're discussing whether or not to change the name of Forrest Hall, which is named after Nathan Bedford Forrest, which was a Civil War general. And they had students there that are wanting it changed because they said it was racist, but they're hurting their cause because they would get up there and they were angry, they were using foul language, and they didn't lay out any sort of reasoning why they wanted it changed or what their alternatives would be. And to me, that's a total loss of ethos on your from those that are wanting to get change made, and that's one of the problems that I see from the governed.
Representative Scott, there's a couple of questions that you dropped off a couple times, and I'd love to get your feedback as far as what you've experienced in Idaho as far as peer-to-peer intimidation from the reigning political party. What games are played inside the system to fool the governed? And then the third question is how are the governed, the people outside, contributing to the loss of the republic? I know it's a mouthful, but go ahead. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Sorry I'm late. So I'll start with the governed, how contribute to losing the republic. The big thing I'm starting is people, the language, they treat you like you're a superhero. They think you.
Oh, well, yeah, it didn't occur. Well, I will tell you this, that I'm not sure from from the governor's standpoint, but I believe it was a PAC last year that people that were close to him poured money into races to influence where, who was going to win certain races. So the governor has had control of that. There is the belief that, in fact, there was a challenger this past year that ran against our speaker, and his platform was basically that he didn't believe that the speaker was representing the House of Representatives as much as she was representing the governor and his agenda. And so there was that, and again, that comes back to what I talked about earlier about having an establishment versus a conservative type battle. There was an article here recently that came out talking about the conservatives haven't been organized, and there are more conservatives that they originally thought. So what we may end up having is a more of a fight coming out this next session between the establishment, the conservatives, and the governor. And one thing that happened this last year, I talked about having your bills flagged. There were a group of conservative legislators that flagged the governor's agenda. Some of the things that he said that he was wanting to push, they flagged, and a lot of his agenda died. So that's kind of a battle that we're seeing here between the governor and the representatives, and I'm trying to do my best to represent my district, and I'm seeing all this activity that's going on around me, and trying to do what's best for my district. But you can see all that's going around, and it's kind of having a bird's eye view is it's. For somebody that wants to do what's right, it's kind of frustrating to see all these little petty fights that are going on and playing politics when they shouldn't be. Well, I wouldn't use the term blackmail, but yeah, there's. Well, I'll say this: I'm the co-chair of our bipartisan freshman caucus, and there was an issue that came up. It was on school vouchers, and I had a speaker for both sides of the both sides of the bill come speak at an event. It was after session, and I got grief from both sides because I gave somebody a floor to talk to some folks. And, you know, for me, I just want to be informed and let people make informed votes, but it was more people get upset with, from a political standpoint, and I don't know if they're trying to hide the information or what, but it was really kind of frustrating to, you know, for me trying to do what's right and trying to get the information out to people. And it was an open forum where people could come sit and watch, and then I catch grief over it. So those are some of the things that are kind of frustrating.
At the end, that open seat was an establishment Republican, and this is a 70-30 district, so we won't even have any Democrats in that race. But this one former state rep put his name in for that seat, and he voted with the Democrats 46% of the time. He had an F in his last 2 years on the conservative scorecard. He doesn't fit the district very well, and he was the only Republican to join 33 Democrats to put Obamacare into Colorado law. So this guy is what some refer to as a rhino, and he was going to be the only candidate running for this open state Senate seat. I said, no, the voters deserve a choice, and so I threw my name out. So I'm now running for state Senate. Again, I'm a Republican who is establishment, and I'm in the Liberty caucus. I was rated the #1 most conservative on the scorecard in Colorado Springs, #7 statewide, and I got an A-. So hopefully I will fit our district a little better because it's so conservative. The problem I ran into is with my own leadership in the State House. My own leadership, the establishment Republicans in the State House, are mobilizing all of their chests and all of their lobbyist friends. They held a fundraiser for my opponent. They sent their money to my opponent. They rallied a bunch of lobbyists to pay for his campaign, and now my opponent is funded by 37 lobbyists who have given max donations to his campaign. And I think I have 2 lobbyists who have contributed to my campaign. But we're almost even in money, ironically, because I have way more grassroots donors. People giving $25 or $50, average citizens, and the grassroots are really rallying to help me. I have 50 volunteers here that have pledged to knock on doors. I'm way ahead in the number of delegates that will be helping me at caucus. And honestly, I think I'm going to win, but I'm going to be outspent by 5-1. So this is a classic campaign of grassroots against establishment, And the sad part is that my fellow legislators in the State House are helping my opponents during a Republican primary because the Republican establishment has decided that I should not be elected. Listen, that's their prerogative. They don't have to support me. They can use their money however they want. But they are countermanding, I think, the will of the voters. Because my district is very conservative, and my predecessor was very conservative. And the people will want that kind of representation here. So I'm going to have to work extra hard. But as long as my message gets out, I think I have a chance to win.
Representative Scott, would you say that that's the same experience you're having in O?
Identical.
Can you share
And
any?
they're pretty organized across the state.
Can you share some more details?
Yeah, they just, establishment wants legislators they can control. They want people that will do what they're told. And if you think independently or try to make decisions based on your citizens in non-centralized government, that's where I think they're going to fight you every time.
So that is, I think that's kind of the heart of everything that we heard tonight, is that, Representative Terry, you said that it makes it difficult for you to represent your district with partisanship and the battles that are being played behind the scenes. Representative Klingenschmidt saying that because you have these independent thoughts, now the legislators are organizing the special interests and all of their behind-the-scenes efforts to prevent you from becoming elected. And then Representative Scott, you're saying you're seeing the same exact identical thing. Maybe what would you guys say are some policies that you think need to be pushed or pressed by the governed, us, in order to keep the republic, to provide you guys with more support? Or maybe you can just kind of generalize the whole, kind of that bigger picture that we just summed it up with. Who would like that, or start off with that?
I'll just jump in real quick. I think a lot of the rules.
Go ahead, Representative Scott.
Well, I would say for us, a lot of the House and Senate rules that allow a lot of control for the policies and the bills need to be changed. And that's where I think we need to start.
Well, how can the citizens, Representative Scott, how can the citizens help with the rules? Because aren't the rules made by the representatives and the senators?
Well, we have a plan right now. We have some citizens that are strategizing on ways to team the conservatives with the minority party to change it through the legislators, because we can vote on those rules.
Can you explain that a little bit more clearly? I'm not really sure. You've got some folks here from Tennessee, Colorado, Arizona, New Jersey, Virginia, and other places. Can you describe that more clearly?
And we have some KTR citizens that are right now deciphering how the rules are passed with the parties. And doing the research on that, and we're doing a strategy on how we are going to change the rules. House and Senate rules.
Can we, Scott, do you mind, could we follow up with you guys over time to see how that goes?
Yes, that's Travis for doing that.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Awesome. We'll follow up with you, and I think maybe these folks, when we open this up for questions, that you find that some folks might be interesting questions about that. Representative Representative Schmidt.
Well, I've noticed
a couple of things. Yeah, a couple of issues that that should be coming up for us have to do with gun-free zones, and that's either on our elementary K through 12 or through colleges. And there are several legislators that are looking to do something about that. I think in Colorado they actually do have campus carry, and that's being talked about here. The problem is if that goes through our civil justice right now, the way that it's stacked, any gun bill will probably be dead on arrival, and I'm not sure that our governor would vote for anything along those lines. The other issue that we have here has to do with the teaching of Islam in our 7th grade. Like I said earlier, the last year's end of their test, the TCAPs, there was an entire section where they had to read the Quran and answer questions on it. And this year it's caused a tremendous uproar. And there are a couple, at least 2 bills, one bill and maybe another bill that are coming through that would change those standards and not allow teaching of any religious doctrine until the 10th grade. And in my, what I'm looking at is trying to make it an elective and not part of a standard, whereas you have to opt into it, and the parents would have to opt into keeping a separation of church and state as far as any sort of religious doctrine being taught. But right now, it's part of the standards in our 7th grade, and that's and some of the issues where they're having to write the 5 pillars of Islam and write down that Allah is the only God or something along those lines. That's that's something we're dealing with here that's failing our students, and to me it's failing our Republicans. So those issues are going to be coming up for us this next legislative cycle.
Well, Michelle, I'm going to this over to you. If anyone has any questions, we can open up their mics, or they can raise their hand at the top of the Adobe Connect. You can open it up for questions.
Thank you. I don't currently have any questions coming through the chat. So if you would like to, if anybody would like to submit a question via the chat bar, or we can see you raise your hand.
Okay, Pat, go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say Pat and Sharon both are going to have a question. Pat, we're going to take yours first.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Ian, what's your question?
Hear me. Oh, okay, good. Yes, I was a campaign manager for 2 guys who are running for the New Jersey Assembly here, and we lost terribly. And I was wondering, did any of the representatives on the call receive any money from the GOP? I mean, we received zero, absolutely nothing. And I was just wondering if it...
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if that's a way to keep conservatives down. Just don't give them any money. Just don't help them. That's the only question I have. I mean, it seems like it's a nationwide thing to keep candidates, keep the conservatives down. Just shut them up.
Well, I can answer that question. Receive any money the GOP, and in fact, I'm a Native American and I'm a minority, and they have a Republican state leadership committee that is looking for minorities to run for office, and it was kind of unusual. I found them; they didn't find me, and they did. They said they want to have a diverse group of GOP legislators, but they did nothing to help me. In fact, they were going to charge me to use their software and their voter register. I mean, their voter management system. And then even once I won the primary, what they basically did was they polled the area and they assumed that I had an 8-point lead, and that they were going to need they could spend the money from the GOP elsewhere, and I think they put that in other races, but I didn't get one dime or really any help. In fact, the state GOP, like I said, sent some volunteers for my opponent down here, so I actually worked against the system in the primary, and they didn't help me during the general.
Wow.
So I did have help in the Central Committee, and I'm still anti-party all around. But we have control of our Central Committee, and we replaced all the established people with educated citizens. And so you can get control of your Central Committee at the local level. They were more than happy to support the conservative candidate, and they will not for you or what have you to keep the establishment out. And then after the primary, of course, the establishment threw a little money at hoping to join their team. So we do doing that this year.
Representative Scott, do you anticipate that going to do something similar to what Representative Terry was saying, is throw a lot of money at your opponent, send volunteers, that kind of thing, in your primary?
Yes, Mark, and I want to mention this. I was at a David Barton event down in Texas about a month ago, and the left is super organized, and a lot of money is coming into the state, and the establishment is jumping right on with it to fight the conservatives, and they are actually funding door knocking and calling, and they're hiring locals to do it. So more information on that I wanted to share with you guys. I can share with KTR teams, but it's coming hard this year throughout the country.
Wow. Representative Klingenschmidt, do you want to answer Sharon's question?
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to you, Mark, and to all of your students around the country, especially the ones on this call. Just being here, just showing up is proof to me that America is not lost. America is in good hands. That there are concerned citizens out there. Mrs. Paul is alive out. And hopefully, God is with us. God has blessed America in the past, and God has not given up on His promises that America would fulfill her great destiny. And I think we are part of that. And the small but tireless minority setting brush fires in the hearts and minds of men. We're the ones going door to door and mobilizing our neighbors. We're the ones distributing the conservative scorecards to hold the legislators accountable and hopefully elect godly and citizen-fearing candidates to keep the republic. It is up to us. And if we don't do this, then certainly the forces of centralized government will continue to hold power. And they have had power for far too long. And they've had power for years, and they still have power now. But we are a growing movement. I'm encouraged by the 2014 elections nationwide. I don't know what's going to happen in 2016, but I know it is a battle between good and evil, between light and darkness, between freedom and tyranny, between big government and decentralized government where the people have power. I believe in the latter, of course. I believe in everything that you're doing, Mark, and I'm so thankful for your team and for everything that you guys have been able to organize across the country.
Well, thank you, Representative Klingenschmidt.
Sharon would like to ask a question.
Does anybody else have any questions for the legislators? We've got just a few more minutes before we need to wrap up.
Oh, statement of appreciation to all the representatives. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no question. She just had a comment, Michelle. Yeah. All right. So if there are no other questions from anybody, you can email those into us. What we'll do is we've taken really good notes tonight for the answers the representatives gave us, the question that was asked. You have Representative Scott's phone number if you'd like to contact her personally, and we'll get these notes out. There are a lot of folks tonight who couldn't be on the call themselves, but they're waiting. This was recorded, and so they'll get to hear this recording at their leisure.
I'd like to thank you guys for having me on. I'd like
Representatives, do you guys have any last-minute thoughts? We've just got a couple more minutes here, and then we'll sign out for the night.
Set up a meeting. Build those bridges and build up your ethos within the General Assembly. And for the same thing, as far as being a representative, that's what we've got to do. We've got to build those bridges, and for me, I think that can overcome some of the dollars that are spent against us in these elections. We've seen that on some bigger elections as well with Bratt. Some of the bridges that he built and his ground game beat the money, and so that's some of the things that we need to do in order to keep the republic.
I would just like to add, just don't stop educating the Mrs. Powells out there. That is the only solution to any of this, is educated people. And until they understand what's going on, they're not going to work to fix it. So just keep letting them know.
All right. Well, Michelle, I'm going to turn this over to you to close it out. I just want to say thank you guys for being on the call tonight. Representatives, thank you guys for going through our training and sharing your inside information. I know it's a struggle for you guys. It's like this all over the country, and I think CSG students are committed to supporting you and doing whatever it takes to keep the republic.
We apologize for any technical difficulties we encountered tonight. You will receive a link to the recording if you would like it. just simply send an email over saying link requested. You can also share this event with other people by just letting them know we had an event tonight, and they can receive the link with any size donation. Of course, we need those, and we appreciate you contributing to be a part of this evening. Gentle reminder, as we're heading into the Christmas shopping holiday season, we have an Amazon Smile account. That means if you shop on Amazon, we get a small kickback from the company. It has nothing to do with you other than go through the browser. So please let us know if you're shopping with Amazon, and we will send you that information. And we have a monthly speaker series every month. Mark, I don't know who's next month. Do you? That's right.
Yes, next month is going to be Robin Kerner from the Blue Republicans out of Washington State. He is an Englishman who is about to get his U.S. citizenship. He is used to be Democrat. He's considers himself a libertarian Republican now, but it's very interesting perspective regarding how to communicate a message to Democrats on the left and connect with those on the right. So you'll want to stay tuned to hear how he is able to communicate with both sides of the political spectrum.
Please send them in right away. We're booking through the end of next year already, so we can take care of that as well. Yes, Sharon, that will be just like this evening, and all of these are recorded. So we can go back through the archives all the way back to our original first speaker series, which was David Barton, and they can all be pulled for your listening pleasure at a later time. So let us know if there's any you're interested in the archive. And if I don't speak to you all before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas.
And okay, perfect.
Bye, everybody.
All right, guys. Well, Michelle.
Yeah, bye.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Representative Terry, Representative Scott, and Klingenschmidt for taking your time tonight. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.